What You Can Do Today Can Improve All Your Tomorrow by Ralph Marston. A pleasant afternoon to you, ma'am. By the way, my name is Vicente Lacerna Miller Jr., Criminology 2, Black A. I'm going to discuss a different kind of theories. First, the classical theories of crime causation by Cesare Beccaria. Classical view in the criminology explains crime as free will. Decision to make a criminal choice. This choice is made by applying the pain pleasure principles. People act in ways that maximize pleasure and minimize pain. Classical crime theory, particularly according to Beccaria, is based on notion that persons have free will and are those fully responsible for their action, as well as the ability to rationally analyze their option. A. Rational theory. Theory philosopher Adam Smith. Rational choice provides a micro perspective on why individual offenders decide to commit a specific crime. People choose to engage in the crime because it can be rewarding, easy, satisfying, and fun. This perspective assumes that crime is a personal choice and the result of individual decision-making process. Example, premeditated and analyzing the responsibilities. The white-collar criminals concludes that the personal rewards of stealing money surpasses the rest of his or her offense being found. B. Routine activity theory by Lawrence E. Cohen and Marcus Felson. Routine activity theory looks at crime from offender's point of view. A crime will only be committed if a likely offender thinks that a target is suitable and capable. Guardian is absent. It is the offender's assessment of situation that determines where a crime will take place. Example, if an offender is motivated to commit a crime, he or she may be deterred if there are large number of witnesses. However, if guardians are not there, a crime is more likely to occur. So when there's ingredients are present, according to routine theory, crimes happens. C. A lifestyle theory by Glenn Walter. Lifestyle theory holds that crime is a development process guided by an ongoing interaction between the three variables: intensive opportunity, and choice. But by the time the individuals enter the third maintenance phase of a criminal lifestyle, incentive as a change once again, this time to a fear of change. Example, a con artist may target someone who has a gambling or substance abuse problem as a AC victim. D. The general deterrence and the specific deterrence theory by Cesare Beccaria and Jeremy Bentham. General deterrence can be defined as the impact as the grade of legal punishment on the public at large. Specific deterrence can be seen as the impact of actual legal punishment on those who are apprehended. Specific deterrence applies to an individual defendant. When the government punishes an individual defendant, he or she is theoretically less likely to commit another crime because of fear of another similar or worse punishment. Example for that, for a general deterrence, the goal of a general deterrence is to send a message to a public by making them scared of the repercussions of committing a crime and hence less inclined to commit one. One example of general deterrence is a mandatory license revocation for repeat driving while intoxicated violation. Example for a specific deterrence is the individual is wealthy. A monetary fine may not be enough to stop him from committing the offense again. E. Victim precipitation theory by Marvin Wolfgang. A victim of precipitation theory suggests that the characteristic of a victim precipitate that the crime that is a criminal could single out of victim because of victim is of a certain ethnicity, race, sexual orientation, gender, gender identity. Example for that is female rape victim. According to Minakim Amir, frequently attribute to their attack by seeking a connection with a rapist. F. Incapacitation theory by Zimprin. A theory of incapacitations assumes that the state has a duty to protect the public from future wrong or harms, and that such protection can be afforded through some from incarceration of incapacitation. One of major concern is the incapacitating sentence effectively punish individual for crimes not yet committed. Psychological theories of crime causation. Hand snake. Psychological theories often includes cognitive thinking or decision making processes that explain why people choose to offend in a particular situation. A, a common assumption is the offending is essentially rational, that people will offend if they think that well expected benefits will outweigh the expected cost. Psychodynamic theory and psychosexual stage of human development. Psychodynamic theories, also known as psychoanalytic and psychotherapy, helps client understand their emotion and unconscious pattern of behavior. By talking by taking through this emotion and behavior with a social worker, client came to know themselves better and make better for them to propose the personality development in a childhood take place during five psychosexual stages, which are the oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital stage. During the stage sexual energy, libido expressed in a different ways of through different part of body. Example of psychodynamic theory: he trembles when he says a mouse or rat of his fears. Because of his phobia, he frequently finds himself in uncomfortable circumstances. And for the sexual stages of human development, if you were rejected as a youngster, you may subconsciously bury those unpleasant feelings so don't have to deal with them. It possibly that recollection are based on event during our first 2 years of existences. Through development, the stages of psychosexual development as a result of his experience with adults. Behavioral theory by John Watson. Behavioral theory seeks explain human behavior by analyzing the antecedent or the consequences present in the individual's environment and the learned association he or she has required through previous experiences. Example for that, when teachers reward their class or specific pupils for exemplary behavior during the week of celebration, or special treat at the conclusion of the week. Punishment are based on the same principle. Social learning theory. Psychologist Albert Bandura. Criminal behavior which maintains that crime is learned and more likely to occur when the individuals differentially associated with people who are criminally involved experience greater exposure to delinquent models, anticipate or actually receive more rewards and fewer punishment for a crime have a greater numbers of definitions. Favorable to crime, the number of definition favorable to crime. Example, if a youngster sees his or her parents go to work every day, volunteer at local community centers and assist their significant other with household responsibilities, the child is likely to imitate those habits. If a person is rewarded for the action, they will be reinforced and mostly likely repeated. Cognitive theory by Jean Piaget. Cognitive theories of crime explain criminal behavior as a defect in moral thinking, though processes and mental development. Cognitive theories also help us to understand how individuals' personality and intelligence level are linked to delinquency. Example for that, when a therapist teaches you how to detect dysfunction, those patterns and replace them with the constructive ones. They are employing cognitive theories principles. Next, moral development theory by Lawrence Kohlberg. Moral development theory refers to the process through which children develop the standard of right and wrong within their society based on social and cultural norms and laws. Example, if an activity results in a penalty, it must be evil. If it results in a reward, it must be positive. Children frequently make a moral decision based on physical repercussion on their behavior because authority is external to them. Next, intergeneration transmission theory by Lanchner. Intergenerational transmission of criminal behavior can be explained by a combination of different mechanisms. Potential potential biogenetic risk, social learning, or imitation of the parent's behavior, official bias, and a criminogenic environment with risk factor or crime. Example, parents' schooling choices may directly impact their children's decision to stay in school. Intergenerationally transmission incorporates both casual and uncasual channel. Second, next, alternative theory by Michael Person. A beliefs or principle that guides action or assess comprehension or judgment. Take out of house and theories that criminals usually return to a scene of the crime. Example for that, on its face, the alternative explanation that the brain remains intact after night sleep is untenable. Next, differential association by Edwin Sutherland. People learn to become a offender from their environment through interaction with others, and individual learn the values, attitude, methods, atti- methods and motives of a criminal behavior. Example, if one is exposed to a repeated criminal scenario, scenario. This scenario will eventually rub off on others nearby. The differential association theory can be differ in frequency, duration, priority, and intensity. Next, snake condition theory. Hans Snake. Insect theory argues strongly that the biological predisposition towards certain personality traits combined with conditioning and socialization during childhood in order to create our personality. This interconnectionist approach may therefore be much more valid than either a biological environment theory alone. Integrated theory, Delbert Elliott. Integrated theories are theories that combine a concept of central proposition from two or more prior existing theories into a new single set of integrated concept and proposition. Example: integrated theory in which train leads to weak conventional bonds to society, which in turn leads to association with deviant peer groups and those deviants. Maternal deprivation and attachment theory. Bowlby by Bowlby. Bowlby maternal deprivation hypothesis suggests that continual disruption of the attachment between infant and primary caregiver could result in a long-term cognitive, social, and emotional difficulties for that infant. Bowley originally believed the effect to be permanent and irreversible attachment theory. According to Bowley, this theory, the this the way a child develops depend on his or her attachment between their primary caregiver. Bowley argues that children who express an affection and are unable to connect the bonds with other are delinquent. Social theories of crime causation. This entry focuses on three major sociological theories of crime and delinquency, strain, social, learning, and control theories. Social disorganization theory, show by Shaw and Mackey. Social disorganization is a theoretical perspective that explains ecological difference in levels of crime based on structural and cultural factors shaping the nature of the social order across communities. Example were that a public housing resident may live in a unit for a year without ever forming bonds with his or neighbor. Residents who were unfamiliar with the neighborhood's children were less inclined to interfere when the children engaged the inappropriate behavior. Concentric zone theory. Ernest Burgess. The theory possessed concentric zone around the central area, defined by the residential composition, moving from the very poor socially deviant and inner zone of transition of the peripheral suburban commute the ring anomy theory the rings. Second, anomy theory by Robert Merton. The idea of the anomy means lack of normal ethical or social standard. In the criminology, the idea of anomy is that the person chooses criminal activity because of the individual believes that there is no reason not to. Example, example, many people will turn to a criminal methods of earning and living in society does not apply enough jobs that pays a living wage so that they can work to survive. As a result, Merton believes that deviance and crime are mostly the product of anomy or the state of social disorder. Next, strain theory. Sociologist Robert K. Merton. Strain theories state that certain strains of stressors increase likelihood of a crime. These strains lead to a negative emotion such as frustration and anger. Crime may be used to reduce or escape from strain, seek revenge against the source against the source of strains and the relatives target and alleviate negative emotion. Example, individuals who are unemployed for a long time may steal or sell drugs to get money. Seek vengeance against the person who fired them, or use illegal narcotics to feel better. Only a small percentage of strain people turn a crime to a crime according to all strain theories. Relative deprivation theory, Robert K. Merton. Relative deprivation refers to a perception of being deprived of something and is able to account for why some peoples, both young and old, living in a deprived environment do not engage in a crime as well as why some do. Example, employees who believe they should have received a promotion that went to someone else may feel egotically robbed. General strain theory by Robert Agnew. General strain theory states the strain increase the likelihood of crime, particularly strains that are high in magnitude are seen as unjust, are associated with low social control, which create some pressure and intensive for a criminal couple. Crime is one possible response. Example, people who use illegal drugs to make themselves feel better, or a student who assault his classmate to stop the harassment they are causing. Next, cultural deviance theory. Clifford Shaw and Henry Moke. Cultural deviance theory suggests that conformity to the prevailing culture norms of a lower class society causes crime. The mix of culture and values created smaller society with a different ideas of deviance, and those values and ideas were transferred from generation to generation. Example, gang-related activity and as Caribbean has progressively increased over the last 2 decades. The establishment and movement of a new gang, a Caribbean, as well as the extension of existing groups, has resulted in an increase in gang-related activity. Delinquent sub subculture theories. Cohen, Albert, and Short. Delinquent delinquent subculture according to Cohen. The union of young people into subculture is the result of adjustment and status problems of their members, caused by the inequality of existing. For example, criminals or delinquents subculture are defined as system of norms, values, or interests that courage of criminal or delinquent behavior. These cultures, norms, values, or interests may promote specific criminal act or limited selection of such crime. Differential opportunity theory. Richard Cloward and Lloyd Olem. That is the guest of differential opportunity theory, which is idea that people unusually the teens from low socioeconomic background who have the few opportunity to for success will use any means that their disposal to achieve success. The means are the generally referred to as subculture. Example, in some areas of the city, drug trafficking is more difficult to reach than in others. A person who wants to be a drug dealer needs not just a drug supplier, but also a customer base and street corners on it on sell his wares. However, not everyone has access to these resources. Drift theory by Alfred Wegener. Drift theory recognizes that the juvenile delinquent hold convention, values, and attitudes. They are aware that their delinquent actions are viewed by society as deviant. To nullify these conventional values and beliefs, juvenile delinquent learn techniques for of neutralization. For example, according to neutralization and drift theory, juveniles feel a sense of commitment to a law most of the time. This legal responsibility remain in existence. When his commitment is strained, however, delinquents are more likely to turn crimes. Sex and Mensa's example that justify tip best explain this strain. Differential association theory by Edwin Sutherland. The differential association is theory supposed by Sutherland in 1939. It that the people learn to become offender from their environment through interaction with others. Individual learn to values, attitude, methods, and motive to criminal behavior. For example, if one is repeatedly exposed to a criminal scenario, a scenario will eventually spread to others in the vicinity. The frequency, length, priority, and intensity of differential association theory can vary. Contentment theory, Walter Reckless. The theory contends that the series of external social factors and internal qualities effective insulate certain individuals from criminal involvement, even when ecological variables induce other engagement in crime. People a low level of frustration, tolerance, rebelliousness, and needs for fulfillment, as well as one's goals and requirements, may be pushed into delinquency or crime. Second, next, social bond theory, Travis Hershey. Social bonding theory is a control theory built upon the assumption that peoples are inherently self-interested. Therefore, seeks to explain why some people refrain from crime rather than engage in crime. It is one of more prominent control theories found in criminological literature. For example, people are unlikely to commit crimes against another person if they have built many ties with the family, family members, and peers throughout course of their lives and have unofficially accepted the social circumstances and, and expectation that come with being member of society. And next, social reaction labeling theory, Howard Baker. Labeling theory is a theory that's proposed that deviance is usually constructed through reaction instead of action. According to this theory, no behavior is inherently deviant on its own, but is made deviant based on reaction of others. Example, can cause others to treat the person more negatively in turn. The individual acts out. Primary and secondary deviance. Edwin Lerner. Primary deviance refers to a violation of norms, of rule that does not result in a violator's being stigmatized as deviant, but secondary deviance refers to deviant behavior that is a result of being publicly labeled as deviant and treated as an outsider. Example, The stage of secondary deviant occurs when a gang engages in primary deviant behavior, such act of violence, dishonesty, or drug addiction, and then moves to legally deviant or criminal action, such as murder. Our distinction proposed by Limert was between main and secondary deviation. Economic Theories of Crime Causation by William Adrian Boone. As mentioned in the overview of the economic model of crime is a standard model of decision making where individuals choose between criminal activities and legal activities on a basis of an expected utility from those acts. Economic Model of Criminal Behavior Basic Theory, Nobel laureate and Gary Baker. The economic theories of criminal behavior is an application of the neoclassical theory of demand, formalized by a new Nobel laureate Gary Baker in 1968. Instead of potential criminals are economically rational and respondent significantly to those deterring incentives by the criminal justice system. For example, poor education. Achievement may be strongly linked to the occurrence of crime. However, it's possible that is a major factor in unemployment. Karl Marx theory. Karl Marx by Karl Marx. Marxism is a social, political, and economical theory originated by Karl Marx, which focuses on the struggle between capitalist and working class. He believed that this conflict would ultimately lead to a revolution in which the working class would overthrow the capitalist class and seize control of the economy. For example, in order to eliminate capitalism, communist regimes pay employees based on their abilities and needs, and abolish capitalism by having powerful central government hold all property publicly. China is an example of a present communist government. Friedrich Engels and William Bunger's theory. Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Dutch criminologist William Bongers believes in causal link between crimes and economic and social conditions. He asserted that crime is social in origin and normal response to prevailing cultural condition. In more primitive societies, he contended that survival requires more selfless altruism within the community. He attempted to expose the uneven distribution of wealth gained during the Industrial Revolution. The writing see capitalism as an exploitative system that benefit the owner of land, capital, and means of production more than the workforce. Biopsychosocial Theories of Crime Causation by George Ingles. Biosocial criminology is emerging field within the criminology dealing with the biological, bioecological, and social factors and the interaction between these sets of factors as explanation to crime. Biosocial models of crime causation. Biosocial criminology and bioecology is a multidisciplinary perspective that attempts to understand criminal behavior and related outcomes like antisocial behavior and consequences. By considering the interaction between the biological, genetics, hormones, sociology, brain structures, and functioning. For example, that a person may have genetic tendency to depression, but they must also have a social and psychological conditions such high stress at work on their personal lives to trigger this genetic code for depression. Moral and sanity and criminal responsibilities by G.C. Pritchards. Criminal responsibilities means accountability for one's action to a criminal law. As criminal responsibility is a purely legal question, so insanity is a medical one which must be answered by the physician. Next, premenstrual syndrome. Dalton and Green. Premenstrual syndrome is a combination of symptoms that many women get about a week or two before this period. Most women, over 90%, say they get some menstrual symptoms such as a bloating, headache, and moodiness. Buttered child syndrome by Henry Kemp. Buttered child syndrome is defined as collection of injuries sustained by a child as a result of repeated mistreatment or beating. A child injuries indicate intentional trauma or a fear to be more severe than could reasonably be expected to result from the accident. Buttered child syndrome should be suspected. Battered Woman Syndrome by Lenore A. Walker. The set of symptoms, injuries, and signs of mistreatment seen a woman who has been repeatedly abused by a spouse, partner, partner, or relatives. Postpartum stress syndrome and postpartum psychosis by Sid Raza. Postpartum depression is a fairly common condition that impact new norms. The hallmark symptoms of PPD: overwhelming sadness, feeling hopelessness, worthlessness, and low self-esteem. But what might not know is that new moms can experience PPD like symptoms without actually having the disorder. Postpartum psychosis is a serious mental health illness can affect someone soon after having a baby. It affects around 1 in 500 mothers after giving birth. Many people who have given birth will experience mild mood changes after having baby, known as a baby blues. Social and political conflict theories of crime causation. Conflict theories holds that social orders are maintained by domination and power rather than consensus of community. According to conflict theory, those with wealth and power try to hold on it by any means possible, by suppressing the poor and powerless. An alternative conception, the political theories of crime causation, is that they are characterized by their emphasis on social conflict and power relationship. Insofar as a criminal justice system is seen as an instrument of political control or repression, and the politicization of all crimes is implied. Marxist criminology. Mark Karl Marx predicts Engels. Marxist criminology is a theory that attempts to explain crime through the prism of Marxism. Marxist criminology says during the struggle of resources in capitalism, crime emerged as those on the bottom contend for social, political, and economic equality. Example of Marxism is replacing private ownership with a cooperative ownership. The system of the system thought development developed by Karl Marx, Friedrich Engels, and their followers. Conflict theory by Karl Marx. Conflict theory is a set of criminological theories that holds that those in a society with who possess the social and economic power, the ruling class, define antisocial behavior. The ruling class uses the criminal law and the criminal justice system to protect their interests and to control the lower class. Example, the, the discrepancy in federal sentencing is standard for crimes involving powder cocaine versus crack cocaine is an outstanding illustration because crack cocaine is less expensive and the powder cocaine it is the drug of choice for the minority groups. Social reality of crime. Richard Quine. Under the theory of social reality of crime, crime is held to be legal definition of human conduct created by against and of the dominant class in a politically organized society. Def- definition of the crime are in turn applied by the class that has the power to shape the enforcement and administration of criminal law. Left realism, Jack Young, John Leah, and Roger Matthews. Liberalism is just one political ideology that focuses on the causes of crime deviance. Liberalists believe in living in capitalistic society as in a society where private entities control trade in industry instead of the state is the main cause of crime. Example, liberalist ignores the impact of corporate crimes and embezzlement, the fraud by focusing on the impoverished and inner city. Postmodern theory. Theory Derrida by Derrida. Postmodern theory is the critically eliminated theoretical framework that the humanistically account for problems of crime and possibilities of justice at the self-society. Divide these controversies are characterized as open questions that await postmodern criminology consideration. Institutive theory and constitutive theory by Start Henry. The constitutive theory states that recognition of entity as the state is automatic. A state is the only state when it's recognized as such as another states have the considerable discretion to recognize or not. Moreover, only upon recognition by those other state, those new state exist at least on legal sense. Conservatism and liberalism theory. John Gray. Liberal conservatism is a political ideology combining conservative policies with liberal stances, especially on economic issues but also on social matters, presenting a brand of political conservatism strongly influenced by liberalism. Radicalism, McLaughlin. In political science, the term radicalism is a belief that society needs to be changed and that this change are only possible through revolution means. Most people think of left-wing politics when they use the noun radicalism, although people on both ends of the spectrum can be described as radical. Identity Fusion Theory by Juan Gomez, Lopez Rodriguez, and Jimenez Vasquez. Identity fusion theory possesses that strongly fused individuals feel kin-like bonds with other groups, members, even ones with whom they may have had a little or no contact. Several studies have garnered empirical support for our rational ties principle. And that would be all, ma'am. Thank you. God bless.